Well, good day to you. It is October the 7th. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome everyone to Search for Science and just point out to those people who are new, remind those people who have heard these videos before and perhaps haven't done it yet. If you have any questions about what I'm talking about, if you want to see if there's any truth to this information, you want to know what Maitreya is and what these masters are all about, and you want to know about the priorities of Maitreya, whatever it happens to be, the best thing to do is to read more about this for yourself. Get those questions answered for yourself. And I've included links to websites that talk about this information in some way. Most of those links do not talk about Maitreya specifically. The one that does talk about Maitreya specifically, that you can get the best background information about Maitreya and his priorities and those kind of things, is the Share National site. Link is at the top. But some of the other sites talk about perhaps the priorities of Maitreya, and those kind of things, and what humanity's already starting to do, and some of the inroads that we're starting to do even now. So that's why I put them in there, to kind of give you a little better sense of this stuff. So hopefully you'll look into them, especially the Share International site. They're all free. It just takes a moment or two of your day to do this, and then you'll get a better sense of this information. You'll even get a better sense if this is true for yourself by doing that. So hopefully you will. If you want to join the discussion, of course, you can tell me how you think by posting a comment. You can post questions in the comment section. I actually have an email like everybody else. It's searchforsigns@mail.com, and you can get your question or your comment to me that way too. Robert Vasquez, I want to thank you. Cosa Cosmic, thank you for your comment and your question. I'll get to you in a second. The Servant 752, Shelley Hedinger, and Healthful Livingify. Thank you very much for you joining the discussion, everybody. I appreciate it. All right, Cosa Cosmic, you had a question. You actually had a couple questions. Can Maitreya get you a new car? I'll start with this one. Can Maitreya get you a new car? All I want, Maitreya, is to get me out of this country and or of the world. I'd be happy if there is a job, so don't need to rely on others for money. If Maitreya exists, I wish. All right. Can Maitreya get you a new car? Well, my knee-jerk reaction... Let me go back. You're responding, I believe, to the video when I was talking about the hand of Maitreya, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that for those people who don't know what I'm talking about when I say the hand of Maitreya. What do I mean by that? But real quick, when I talk about the hand of Maitreya and asking Maitreya for help, I give some examples of some of the things that I've done and asked for that has come my way very specifically. And almost invariably, somebody will comment about something about themselves, selfishly. I can ask Maitreya for this, like Maitreya is a genie, you know what I mean? And I don't mean it to put it out there like that, because that's not what the image of the hand of Maitreya is supposed to be used for. But if I had to be honest with myself, I too have asked Maitreya for things that were really selfish and not altruistic, and they've come my way. So can Maitreya get you a new car? I don't know how that would look, you know what I mean? But I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm talking about. But first, let me talk about what is the hand of Maitreya. What is he talking about? There have been hundreds and hundreds of different types of miracles all over the world for decades, happening to all sorts of people in all sorts of countries, speaking all different types of languages, having all the different types of beliefs that you can think of. Things like weeping icons, UFO sightings, healing waters, angel sightings, images of the Madonna, and those kind of things. These are just ones that have kind of come to mind, right? Crop circles, those kind of things. But invariably, the people who have experienced these miracles, by and large, have been left with a greater sense of hope. Now, before I get into the hand of Maitreya, I just want to say this about the many miracle signs. One, they're happening to every different types of people in all walks of life, all different types of religions, like I just said. So, but they're also leaving people with a greater sense of hope. So it's true to say, based on these miracles that have been going on, that the hope for mankind is for all of mankind, not just for Christians or Buddhists or atheists or whatever, but for anybody who wants to have hope. And it's there for everyone. Now, and all these miracles are free too, which is also quite extraordinary. Now, the miracles, I think, are also evidence of the awaited teacher coming back, because they are happening to some of all the religious groups, but also people such as myself who don't claim to practice any specific type of religion have experienced these miracles as well. So we're not excluded from that. Now, this particular miracle the hand of Maitreya, I think if I could rate all the miracles as extraordinary as they all are, some are more publicized than others. This one wasn't publicized really at all. But to me, if I could rank them as in extraordinariness, this one is the most extraordinary for a couple reasons. One, according to Maitreya himself, this is the closest he can get to any one of us before he's out known in the world for who he is, as the world teacher, as the one awaited by all the religions. He's in the world now, but he's not being recognized for that yet. He's not even using any name that would make it easier for people to recognize him as that. He's not even speaking in a way to make it easy for people to recognize him as Maitreya. But he's in the world now, speaking to humanity through our media. Now, once he's known for the one awaited by all the world's religions, or the world teacher, or however you are awaiting your teacher to come back based on your own belief, once we recognize him as that, then obviously we'll have a closer relationship with him than the hand of Maitreya. But the other thing that makes this quite an extraordinary miracle is you do not have to travel or buy anything to go and experience the healing or the blessing of this miracle. So for instance, one of the many miracle signs are crosses of light that appeared in panes of glass. Well, if you just look at an image of the cross of light, it doesn't do anything for you other than just it's an image of a cross of light. But if you stand in front of this pane of glass that has this cross in it, you can receive a healing from it. Just as the healing waters, quite an extraordinary miracle. Eventually there'll be close to 800 of these wells all over the world, totally healing the body of humanity, over the coming time. And will never end, these healing waters. Right now, only 3 are discovered. The most famous is in Tlacote, Mexico. And it was reported by 60 Minutes and those kind of things. But if you saw an image of a healing well, it's not going to do anything for you. You have to drink the water to get it. So you would either have to travel to Mexico, or and right now, or eventually travel to a well whenever they're discovered, or buy some Tlacote tablets or Tlacote Creme from Ainsworths Pharmacy in England, which is the only pharmacy that puts these things out. And you can buy them from. So, but this miracle, the hand of Maitreya, you don't have to do any of that stuff. All you have to do is just see an image of it. And the image is online. You can go to the Share International site and download a PDF or take a screenshot of it if it's your phone, and it works the same way. But what is the hand of Maitreya? Well, some years ago, there was a woman living by herself in an apartment in Spain. Her son was very familiar with this information, apparently had talked to her about it, but she wasn't that keen on it, per se. So she wasn't one that was involved with the Share International group in Spain, but her son was. One day, she went into the second bathroom, and there was a man's handprint on the mirror. Now, she thought initially it was one of the people who were there cleaning her apartment, a day or so ago, and maybe perhaps was kind of lazy and just kind of put his hand on the mirror as he was cleaning the sink. So, and then left this handprint. So she wiped it off. Well, the next day, the cleaners hadn't come back between the time that she wiped it off but it reappeared on that mirror. So then she started to think maybe there's something more to this. So she knew a little bit about the story because of her son, and she called her son up. Her son came and took a picture of the image of this handprint of Maitreya, which doesn't look like a greasy smudge print. It looks like a 3D image of a hand, and phoned Benjamin Creme. Benjamin Creme asked his master, and his master asked Maitreya, and Maitreya actually said to Ben to tell this woman, I know there's like a roundabout way, that now that she knows that it's a handprint of Maitreya, not to wipe it off because he would not be able to put it back on there. So, and she didn't. Now, that in and of itself is quite extraordinary, but what makes this even more extraordinary is Maitreya himself said this is the closest he can get to any one of us before he's out known for who he is. So if you look at the image, and you don't even have to travel to Spain, this is the other thing that makes it extraordinary, you just have to look at an image of it, that's it. Just look at an image of it, and it will have the same effect, but it creates a mind-to-mind contact between you and Maitreya, and you can ask him for help in some way. Okay, now, to get back to your question about the car and all those kind of things. So, obviously it's best, just as with prayer, to pray for somebody else and not for something for you, right? But we all have needs, and we all pray for things for ourselves, like a job or something like that. And if you look at the hand of Maitreya, you can ask him for something, even if it's for yourself, and he'll help you as best he can. Maitreya himself said about the hand of Maitreya that his help is there. All you have to do is ask. Now, there was a story that Ben was talking about when he was talking about the hand of Maitreya to the Share International group some years ago. And he was talking about a lady who was a part of the group that had some really bad financial problems and looked at the hand of Maitreya and asked for help. Now, she had asked Ben if she could do this, and Ben, rather than saying no, you don't ask for money or something like that, he said, be specific, don't be vague. And this was the point he was trying to make, and this is the point I'm trying to make for asking for help from this image of the hand of Maitreya, to be specific. So she asked not only for money, but for $20,000, which is what she needed to kind of get over the hump. Now, she didn't open the door one day and there was a duffel bag with $20,000 in cash at her doorstep. But what happened was she received a call out of the blue from her estranged father, who she hadn't spoken to in years. And he was talking to her, and for whatever reason, he called her. I think Maitreya opened his heart up enough to where he called her. And through the course of the discussion, he was asking how she was doing, and finally he asked her, he goes, do you need anything? He asked her this question. She didn't ask him, and he said yes. He asked her this question out of the blue, do you need anything? And she goes, well, actually, I need $20,000. And he goes, done. So, when asking for help from Maitreya, whether it's, just to ask him or looking at the image of the hand of Maitreya, which is better to do, if you're specific enough, but also too, don't have any kind of expectations of how it's going to come your way, he can help you if you're sincere about it. That's the other thing too. You can't just jokingly say it or try to, test him to see if it's true. But if you ask him sincerely, you'd be surprised at what happens. Now, the one thing that happened with me that was very selfish that I asked for is I was asking for help in cleaning a building. And he did help. Unbeknownst to me, he actually showed up to my job and helped when I wasn't there. Took the trash out of this side of the building and that kind of thing. And somebody else saw him doing it. And then when I wanted to talk about this story on this channel, I was trying to remember the woman who saw him. I couldn't remember her name. And I asked the hand of Maitreya specifically, is there anything you can do to help me remember what this woman's name was, who saw you? Now, I was expecting it maybe just to pop in my head. Oh, yeah. But it was quite extraordinary. The next day at work, years after I had seen this woman on a different miles away from where I saw her and knew, where she worked and stuff, she came into where I worked. And I was like, it was the next day. It was quite extraordinary. And I asked her name, and she said her name was Carol and so forth. So it can be very specific and dramatic, or it might be so subtle and so simple that you don't even realize that he's helping you. But whether it's to ask Maitreya or these masters for help, to pray to Jesus or God or anything, or even Maitreya helping humanity or these masters helping humanity, it's important to remember our relationship with them is they are not here to do it for us. They're here to help us. We still have to go through the motions and do stuff. So when I pray to God or whatever for whatever it is I want, I still have to keep my little legs moving, as I always say to myself, right? This woman asked specifically for help, but then her father called her, and then she asked her father. So if you want a job, be specific on what kind of job you want. Be specific as to why you want the job when you ask the hand of Maitreya, but you also have to get out there and do something about it. You can't just sit on your couch and watch TV and expect Maitreya to, to do the calls for you and have employers just call you out of the blue, but you might be surprised. So if you ask Maitreya, instead of just for a job, I need a job that is perhaps, financially will help me out, get me out of the hole that I'm in, if that's the case. Perhaps even ask for a job that you will find fulfilling and bring you joy or help other people in the process, whatever it happens to be that you want. But then go out and call and make the calls and show up for the interviews. You might be surprised at what shows up. You might actually find your dream job, you know what I mean? Where had you not asked for help, it might not have come your way, Or if you're, I know if you ask Maitreya to be able to lift you off the planet, as much as I can relate to that, you know what I'm saying? Or move you out of the country or something, he's not going to do that. But, he can help you to find a job, or if you need a car because you need to get on with your life and do those kind of things. He might be able to, if you ask the hand of Maitreya, he might be able to help you in that way in some kind of thing. But you still have to go through the motions and do it. And it's the same thing with humanity. We created the problems environmentally, politically, spiritually, economically. We have to fix it. But with Maitreya and these masters, we have the ability to ask them for help, and their suggestions and their advice will be simple, but yet and easy to follow if we just do it. But it will be for us to do it. They're not going to be able to, they can't do it for us. So that's why it's important to kind of remember that relationship. But again, when you look at the hand of Maitreya, be sincere about it and see what happens. And that's not only for you, Kosa Cosmic, but it's for anybody who wants to ask. And it's free. It's all free. You don't have to sign up for something. You don't have to give them money or anything like that. But anyway, thank you very much for your question. Now, the other question you asked was, where is it? You said... I'll just read this a little bit. You said, are we on the brink of the next world or the total end? We are on the brink of the next world. Now, real quick, I don't want to get into it too much because there's another part I want to talk about. But we are in a transition between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. Humanity is totally ignorant of the fact that everything in life is energy. And more scientists are starting to prove this in labs, that everything is energy. The cosmos is no different than what they see under the microscope. So when an astronomer looks up into the cosmos and sees our planet going, or our sun going moving around in an orbit, and we move in line with one constellation to the next, which creates these ages that they talk about. There's an energetic thing that happens, and humanity uses energy to build the civilization of the time. And over the last 2,500 years or so, we've been under the influence of the energies of Pisces. We're moving into a new age, which is bringing us all different sorts of energies. And they're much different than the energies of Pisces. And we can look back over the last 2,000 years and go, well, that's what humanity did with the energies that we had to use, right? We built the structures. We built democracy. We built the economic structures like capitalism and communism and socialism under the light of Pisces. But we're moving into a different time with different energies. And those structures that we built, the things that we thought of, the civilization that we've created under the light of Pisces, won't work under the light of Aquarius. They're totally different energies. So we're in this time, and when any one of us look into the future, we can't look off into the future too far because it's really scary because we don't know what it's going to build. So then we're bombarded by on all sides, from the media, whether that's mainstream media or YouTube videos or whatever, or even people in our own life or whatever. We're bombarded with this fear and uncertainty about what's going to happen. So of course we have this, the world's going to end. Well, from one sense it is, but it's the way that we've related and lived our life with each other over the last 2,500 years. Yes, that's definitely ending. But it doesn't mean physically life on planet Earth is going to end. It just means that the way that we related to one another is going to end. But what does that mean for the future? Well, until we start to build the structures that those energies will support, like the principle of sharing, justice, brotherhood, and peace, well, it's a little rocky and it's a little scary. But Maitreya would say, all will be well, all manner of things will be well. But if we just tried the principle of sharing as humanity, each country just tried to do it a little bit, just a little bit, it would change life on planet Earth almost overnight. Fear would go away almost overnight. Hunger would be eradicated almost overnight. The uncertainty of the future would be eradicated almost overnight. And it would bring about trust amongst nations. Eventually, it would ease the tensions and the fears that the peoples of every country have toward one another and toward the future and so forth by just trying the principle of sharing. It's so simple, but yet we still don't do it. You know what I mean? And until we do, we're going to be living in this very uncertain time. But the world is not going to end at all. These miracles that have been going on, and at the beginning and the end of each one of these videos, there are images of miracles. They're not the only ones, but they're images of miracles. And they are evidence of hope, evidence of oneness, because they're happening to everybody all over the world, all different walks of life, all different faiths, of no faith or whatever. And they're giving people a little bit of hope for the future. So the hope for mankind is for all of mankind. And as Maitreya said one time, he goes, keep your eyes on the prize, and the prize is humanity. So anyway, now I wanted to swing back around and address, there were some comments going back and forth between some people, and I always like it when you do this, because they were respectful comments and so forth, but some people had some different views. The Servant 752, I think, has commented before, said Jesus is the truth, not Maitreya, New Age stuff, and then quoted the Bible. Jesus is the Messiah. He is God in the flesh, John 20:28. And Thomas answered and said unto him, my Lord and my God. All right, well, thank you very much for that. Now, Jesus, if you want to quote the Bible, Jesus also said, if you wanted to quote it, in John 14:12, he said, very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works that I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. So when I present this information, okay, about Maitreya, I refer to him as the Christ. Now, I see him as the one awaited by all the world's religions, because if you dive into each one of these religions, they are all awaiting a teacher to come back. The Jews are awaiting the Messiah, which they missed him as Jesus. Jesus was the Messiah for the Jews in the world at the time. But the Muslims are awaiting the Mahdi. Christ are, of course, awaiting Jesus to come back. The Buddhists are awaiting the fifth Buddha, Maitreya Buddha. Hindus are awaiting Sri Krishna to come back, or the Kalki avatar. It just depends on what sect of Hinduism they are in. But so looking at the miracles, doing my own investigation, and not only the Bible, the Quran, the Ageless Wisdom Teachings, leads me to believe that the one awaited, there's a one teacher awaited for all the religions, that there's truth within all the religions. Now, we've created the ideologies that we have today. But these ideologies create confusions within the minds of people. And they're ideologies based on truth, but their truth isn't in the ideology. So I don't think Maitreya is the truth, just as I don't think Jesus is the truth. But I do think that Jesus spoke the truth 2,000 years ago, just as I believe Maitreya speaks the truth today. But that doesn't mean, it's not mutually exclusive to just Maitreya. He's just speaking the truth. Just as I don't think what Jesus talked about is exclusive to just Jesus. Now, we created the ideology as a humanity. But if you were born in the southern part of the United States to fundamentalist Baptist, you got about a 98 to 99% chance of being a fundamentalist Baptist. Even if you rebel against that ideology because your parents were too strict, you still have that in you, right? As a culture, as a conditioning. But that if you took that same baby and went back in time and took that same baby and he was born in Israel, you got about a 90, and to fundamentalist, Jewish parents, you got about a 98 to 99% chance of being a fundamentalist Jew. But then if you move that baby, 100 or so miles to the east, they're going to be Muslim. Or whether that's Sunni or Shiite or Kurd, you know what I mean? And so it depends on where we're born. The conditioning that we've created for ourselves creates the ideology. Now, I think that God is unity. God is one. There is no separation between us and God, but yet we've created these ideologies over the centuries to keep us separate from God. So the belief in Jesus as the only true Son of God, to me, doesn't exist. You know what I mean? And so even in the Christian community, there are a billion and a half or 2 billion Christians on this planet. They each have their own Jesus. If you investigate it and you talk to they might agree on certain things, but fundamentally, the Jesus that they believe in is who they are. So, for instance, Maitreya says, as man so relates to man, does man relate to God? Well, if you're a critical person, guess what? Your Jesus is critical. Now, this is another example of a Christian. My mother is a very non-judgmental person as a whole. So she goes to church. She found a church that isn't a Bible thumper. You're all going to hell. Everyone's going to go to hell if you don't believe what I say. If you don't tithe to the church, you're going to hell. But there are churches that talk about this, right? And, so when she talks to somebody who doesn't believe what she believes, she doesn't automatically think they're going to hell because of that. Her God and her Jesus is more loving, more tolerant. But that's just because that's who my mother is. You see what I'm getting at? Now, if you were to, and I say this in a tongue-in-cheek way, but there is some truth to this. There are people who live in the state of Georgia who believe Jesus is a Georgia fan that wears the red and black. You know what I'm saying? That everything Georgia does on the football field, Jesus is supporting that, and is against Alabama because they don't like Alabama fans. Just as there are Alabama fans who pray to Jesus that their team win, that Nick Saban makes the right decision at the right time to make the right calls on the field. You think I'm kidding, but it's true. You know what I'm saying? If you look at it from a national perspective, fundamentally, Christians are mainly to the right politically, and if you're fundamentalist Christian, you're probably more of a fundamentalist Republican. But there are some that are to the left, but whatever. But for the most part, that's the case. And if you were to talk to a fundamentalist Christian who is a fundamentalist Republican, Jesus is a fundamentalist Republican. Thinks the Democrats are evil, they're satanic. Capitalism is good, communism is bad. Do you realize that if you read the Bible, there are things that Jesus said that would make Karl Marx blush? It's true. And I heard that one time on a YouTube channel. I was like, wow, that's actually true. That's a good way of explaining it. Because Jesus said, give all of your worldly possessions to the poor and follow me, right? Karl Marx never said that. You know what I'm saying? But Jesus was not a capitalist. He wasn't this small business owner from Galilee, and everybody else should be a businessman. But if you look at fundamentalist Republicans who are fundamentalist Christians, they have no personal responsibility when it comes to their own spirituality and being saved. Everything is put in the hands of Jesus. By just believing in Jesus, I can be just as mean and nasty as I want to be on a daily basis. And then every Sunday I can pray to God and ask for forgiveness or whatever. And then it's all clean and my slate's clean. If I died right then, I go to heaven. And I'll be saved because that's the most important thing, is to be saved. Everybody should be saved, blah, 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 blah. But yet I can go back and be just as mean and nasty as I am Monday through Friday at work. I can exploit people on my job. Whatever. And I'm saying this because this is what people think. It doesn't change their life. It doesn't make them a better person, a better member of society even. Sometimes it makes it worse, right? Now, then they look politically and they, when it comes to the poor, they're walking right past the poor, where Jesus said, give all your worldly possessions to the poor and follow me. He says it in the Bible. Nobody follows it, but he says it in the Bible. When Maitreya says share the world's resources, I've had Christians comment on my channel, that's evil. That's Satan talking, right? But yet Jesus said the same thing. And they'll walk right past somebody who really needs help, and they'll say, well, that's their problem. They should get themselves out. But I think it should be the other way around. I think that as a government, we pay taxes to the government. The government should help us out when we need help. But it doesn't. We're left to fend for ourselves. But yet spiritually, I think we should take full responsibility for our spiritual growth, for being saved. We should be the ones that save us. Now, we can look to Jesus, we can look to his teachings and have him help us, just as we can look to the teachings of Maitreya. I've studied both, the Bible and the Ageless Wisdom Teachings. I see no contradiction between the two, but somebody who's deeply ingrained in their own ideology, Christian ideology, would see it as an affront to their belief. But if you look at it from an open mind, there's no difference to what Maitreya says and what Jesus said 2,000 years ago. Jesus was talking to a primarily very undereducated group of people. So he spoke very simply with a lot of symbols so they could understand it. Maitreya is speaking to a slightly more educated people, more world-wise people. So he's speaking it differently. In the future, when we have a greater sense of ourselves as one, Maitreya will be speaking totally different to us than he's speaking today. But it's all based on humanity and how we respond to it and what we can take in. You know what I mean? But fundamentally, I think if you look at life spiritually, the reason why we're in such spiritual dire straits is because humanity as a whole does not see society's responsibility to help the underprivileged. And yet we think Jesus can do everything for us. You know what I mean? So that's where I think the problem lies. But the thing I wanted to say too is, if what Maitreya says is true, as man so relates to man, does man relate to God? Man can truly not relate to God as God really is until man sees himself as one. There's no other way. That's why the need for sharing is so important. It can't just be talked about and understood. We as a humanity must manifest unity on our planet through the principle of sharing so that hunger is eradicated. You can't have unity when half of the planet is in poverty and a large segment of humanity is either food insecure or literally starving to death. You can't do it. You can't live life like that for very long. Now, what I also wanted to say too, and this is for everyone, whether you're Christian or atheist or whatever, this is coming from an article, The Need for Unity by Benjamin Creme's master. He said, unity is a manifestation of spirit, for the true nature of humanity is one. All that leads to unity benefits the race and lends wings to the journey. Unity is invincible. The dark ones beat on the shield of unity in vain. The time is coming when unity will be achieved, but the first steps in that direction must be taken now. Useless it is to wait for others to start. The move towards unity must be made by each one. Now, this line right here changed my life. Nothing so pierces the web of unity as criticism. 1,000 possibilities are lost in this way. Keep silent the tongue of criticism and protect the precious fabric so carefully spun. Each in his own way knows the power of unity. Each seeks from his neighbor approval and consent, but mechanical conformity of thought here has no place. Each move in the direction of unity adds power to the whole and lightens the task of the toilers behind the scenes. Create unity and know the true nature of man. Preserve unity and allow the spirit of man to flourish. Teach unity and unleash the love in your brothers' hearts. Beautiful. I love you guys. You guys take care. Enjoy the day, and I'll look forward to putting up videos in the very near future. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.